Hello, and welcome to LMPD's podcast. I'm your co-host, Officer Matt Sanders. I'm joined with the Chief of the Louisville Metro Police Department, Chief Erica Shields. You're listening to On the Record with LMPD. Ma'am?
Hi, Matt.
I haven't seen you in like a week. What happened? So I was coming down here to do a podcast last week. We had 4th of July a week or two before that. I'm coming down here. You call me. You're like, podcast is done. And I was like, oh, no, what happened? What happened last week? We didn't get to record.
We were all set to do it, and then someone intentionally rammed our jail with their car.
Oh, no.
And so we had to navigate that. And then once we got it stabilized, I need to make the point of all of your colleagues made a point of finding me to let me know how upset you were because you spent all this time on your makeup, and we were canceling the session.
I get a ribbing for doing this. I had to get my hair done, and so I was running late anyways. But regardless, I saw you out there.
I was out there.
Hey, how'd we do? I mean,
God, let me tell you something.
There was federal partners out there and everything.
The department did fabulous. I mean, the response was spot on. It was executed with such precision to ensure the safety of all of the business folks, the visitors downtown, because we didn't know. We didn't know what the motivations were behind the person in the car. And the department did a phenomenal job. And thankfully, it was nothing more than someone independently just driving into the jail to make a statement. So the department nailed it.
Well, before we get into today's podcast, my producer just slipped me a note here. Watch, I'm going to mimic this. Oh, wow. Oh, this is interesting information. Happy birthday.
Oh, nice.
How's 35 feeling on you, huh? I'm going to get a lot of crap from my people from that, too.
That's right. You can keep sucking.
You got birthday plans?
This is it.
Hey, you're spending it with me. I'm so happy. You share a birthday with Robin Williams.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Ernest Hemingway.
That. Okay.
John Lovitz.
Right.
David Hasselhoff.
Okay.
Just to name a few.
This is going really well.
Well,
right,
happy
thanks.
birthday. And I'm glad you're spending it with me. I'm honored. What do you want to talk about today? Let's get into it.
I want to talk about what is commonly referred to as GVI, also known as the Group Violence Intervention.
Okay.
And it's a program that the department is starting to work in coordination with arresting people for violent crime. This is a different approach that will ultimately help us hopefully reduce violent crime down the road.
Okay, so this is it like a social experiment meets police experiment type thing? I mean, what is it?
Well, I can understand where you think that. I think essentially what it is, it's taking the information we get from shootings and saying, okay, we know we have this one path where we're pursuing arrest warrants, we're investigating, but what about the other path of how do we insert ourselves into what's occurring in this group violence,
right,
where we know there's going to be retaliation to prevent the next shooting.
Further homicides.
Yep.
Okay. So you come to LMPD. We're doing some GVI stuff. Do you have somebody in your department that you may want to bring on now to introduce that is working with GVI?
I do. When I started here, it's really interesting because the GVI, the program had been brought here and a lot of work around it, but it hadn't begun yet.
Okay.
And so once I got up to speed on how the program worked, and I was told, I knew I needed to find somebody who could run point on this. And I had loved this guy, Smiley. And I thought, Smiley would be fantastic for this. But then people said, well, no, we really think Ivan would probably be ideal for this. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, I've been here a month. Who's Ivan? Well, it's Ivan Smiley Haygood,
right.
And that's our guest.
Right. So let's bring him on now. Ivan Haygood, better known as Smiley. How you doing, my man?
Yes, what's up, Sam, man? How you doing, Matt?
You had to throw the Sandman back. Do you like the Smiley nickname? It has followed you since I've known you on this police department.
Man, it's a part of it. It goes everywhere I go now.
Well, welcome to On the Record with LMPD. Can you tell us just in brevity a little bit about yourself? Where do you work?
Brevity.
Okay.
Well, because you've bounced around a little bit and you've done a lot of really cool stuff around here.
Right.
So that's a 6-hour podcast in itself. So just kind of how did you get to where you are now?
Man, honestly, man, I am Ivan Haygood, known as Smiley.
Smiley.
Yeah. So first of all, I've been on the department for 6 years. Born into both a religious and military family. One of 4 boys. Right.
God, your poor mother.
Yes. And I grew up in a loving environment. And in that environment, my parents gave us a sense of duty and responsibility. Cool. And that coupled with prayer and service and prayer and love forges who I am, Smiley, right?
You
I'm
still
full
have
of
a smile.
love.
Always happy, man.
Yeah, full of
Always.
love, full of life, full of service. And serving on the department, I've been, in these 6 years, I've been able to touch the 4th Division. I've been able to be on, serve in the 6th Division, and I saved the 1st, right? 2nd Platoon, Squad 3,
Oh,
rep,
gosh.
rep, right?
Giving shout outs to the
Yes.
squad. You got to love that.
Yes. And so 3 years in to my career, I had the opportunity to apply for a specialty unit. And that unit was the community engagement unit.
Okay.
And in that unit, we were able to do what I love to do, engage the community. And one of the things that I had a heart for was youth. And in July of 2019, I was able to relaunch an already, relaunch and revitalize STEPS. STEPS is strategies, teamwork, empowering potential, and success.
Okay. Mentor is it a mentoring thing?
Yeah, it's a juvenile diversion program.
Okay, cool.
Designed to redirect low and high risk youth offenders from the justice system to a more community based guidance and support.
Okay, cool. So let's move that forward to GVI and your involvement with GVI. Chief, I'm going to send it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Was the ball of GVI kind of already rolling before you got here, and then Smiley gets involved? Can we talk a little bit about that process? Like, where were we at?
Exactly. So no, it really wasn't. There'd been extensive discussion on it, but that was the real issue, is it hadn't gotten off the ground. And there's different lines of thought and action that have to occur for GVI to work, and the police department owns one of these lanes, if you will. And for GVI to work, the police department's portion of it has to go well.
Okay.
And so we had not begun it as of yet when I arrived. And so it really took time for myself and Colonel Gwynn to get up to speed on how the program should operate.
What it should look like.
Yeah, what it should look like to be successful. And then, so it's been a learning experience, not just for us, but for Smiley, for the homicide unit, for everyone who plays a critical role in it. And so we're starting to hit a cadence. But I will tell you, right out the gate, even before we fully understood how to do it properly, Smiley was doing it.
Okay.
And he's like, okay, and that was what was so wonderful, because, you work with people in all walks of life who can talk stuff to death. Let's strategic plan. Let's plan, discuss. At some point, get off your ass and do the job. Right? What are the results? And that's who Smiley is. He's like, okay, I see the value in this program. It needs to be done. This is what we're going to do. And that is why I really believe that GVI within LMPD is going to become a national model, because there's someone who's running point on it, who is committed to doing the work and not just talking about it.
So it's a new initiative for LMPD.
Hold on, Matt. Thank you, Chief.
Oh my
Thank you,
gosh,
Chief.
this guy, he's not going to let a compliment fly by him at all.
Thank you.
You did get a nice hefty compliment from the chief of police there, so that's always good.
I did. You know what? As she was saying that, the biggest thing that I love to do, and I found even through STEPS, why it rolls over to GVI, is that you have to have commitment, right?
But you have to have buy-in, right?
And then follow through. The follow through is the biggest portion. There's a lot of people that talk a lot of things, but don't walk it out. And so our youth, our community, the ones we're talking about and today, they need the follow through.
So we're hearing GVI, framework. We're new initiative. Let's just talk. Let's get into the weeds a little bit about what it is. So the starting point of GVI is the shooting review, right?
Right.
So talk a little bit about your involvement. What's the shooting review, and then your involvement?
Okay. Essentially, the shooting review is a weekly meeting that involve or comprise of law enforcement team, of detectives from divisions and homicide detectives, our intelligent-based analysts, our victim services, our federal law enforcement, our local law enforcement agencies, go into prosecutors, our U.S. Attorney's Office, Commonwealth, and you have our county attorneys. And then here you go. I don't want to leave them out since I am rolling, right? You have our Department of Juvenile Justice, court-designated workers, along with alcohol beverage control.
Yeah, some of the other city
and-
departments have been fantastic for us, and
Okay,
we need
cool.
to note that.
Yeah, and that's why I want to give shout out to them, because the communication factor, the information that is coming out of these shooting reviews have been instrumental for us getting to identify where we are, these individuals that are in these groups that are driving the violence. And so with that shooting review, we review each incident involving fatal and non-fatal shootings.
Okay.
For the prior week, right?
From the prior week.
Yep.
And from those, we identify the individuals that have a high probability of retaliation, and we right there go talk to them.
So sometimes so it's retaliation. So I've been shot. This is my group of folks. You want to insert yourself with my peers who might retaliate on my behalf. How about if I'm shot and I survive? Would you come talk to me as well?
I'm coming to talk to you. And I'm coming to talk to you either at home, in the hospital, or on the street.
So you are essentially meeting with victims of being shot, and what happens there?
We just talk.
Give me an example. So let's say the group gets together. We reviewed the prior week's homicides and non-fatal shootings. The group has decided, okay, this person was shot, but they've lived. They're part of this GVI group meeting. You're now involved. Give me an example of what you would do from there.
So let's give one example and give him a name. Let's go with John. John come find out John has been shot. John has been shot 7 times. And so John is in the hospital. I get myself and a team that's comprised of our VSU, our Victim Service Unit, and I get another officer, and that's been my boy, Officer McFeeters. We go to the hospital, and we talk to John. John, how are you doing? First of all, how's your recovery?
Right.
It's a very simple and pointed conversation.
Well, John's going to see 2 uniformed officers walking in while he's in the hospital rehabilitating from being shot multiple times. Like, there's a barrier there that appears needs to be broken down, most likely.
You're right, because you're right. The wall is, and the perception is that we can arrest our way out of this. We can't arrest our way out of this. We have to find and navigate through this on what tools do we have? What are your options? Because staying alive, your well-being means something to us.
So this is more than just you following up from the shooting, right? You're breaking down those barriers. You're talking to John. You're introducing ideas.
Yes, we find out what makes John go. Come to find out, John has a little girl. John still has his mom. John still has a wife. And I says, are they worth living for? Right? Are they worth finding a different path? Because you can't go back to the path, because it's either death or prison. So, and we just talk, and therefore we leave it at that, because it becomes the introduction. That's just the introduction, and then we follow up with John, because he's going to be there about a month.
What's the goal, ma'am, when Smiley does that? What do you think the goal is?
Well, I think the first thing is to note he's not going in with the mission of identifying who the shooter is or making an arrest.
Right.
Correct.
Who shot you?
Right. That is being handled by a separate detective or detectives. It really is going in and saying and making someone aware that people out here that don't know you actually really care about how you do. So let's try to work to figure out how we can change the trajectory of your life so that, to Smiley's point, in 6 months you're either not a homicide victim or arrested for committing homicide, because this is the patterns are there, the data is there, we know where this is going. It's not going to end well. But at the same time, I'm trying to help you choose a different path. Let's identify who your friends are that you care about.
Yeah.
And let's work with them so they don't end up either in the hospital bed or incarcerated. It's inserting ourselves in lives of folks who are in a really dark terrain and working to redirect the outcome. You're disrupting a cycle of violence. And that actually is what the entire program is predicated on. And it is one of the few programs that I've ever seen where there's actually qualitative data to support its success, that these conversations, literally conversations with individuals who are part of the cycle of violence, the conversations themselves reduce dramatically the likelihood of further violence.
Well, in order to break up the cycle of violence, Smiley's got a big job here. He has got to convince that person or that person's family that violence cannot be normalized like it is right now. I'll just say it. Record homicide rates. I mean, it's murder, 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 shooting, shooting, shooting. We have got to figure out a way to stop normalizing the violence in our community. Man, that's like that's something big. That's a big task. How do you do that?
It's a huge task, and it's, for one, Matt, most of the people in our community are not at high risk for victimization or offending, right? It's small, identifiable groups.
Right.
And so when you're talking to them, whether it's juveniles, you put the responsibilities and you deal with parents. You talk to parents, hold accountability. And here you go. How can you talk to a young man? I give you another example. I go to the hospital and sit with a young man that has been shot and don't know if he will be able to recover and have the full activities of his limbs. And he's
processing that, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's
and then you talk to another young man that's been shot, and he's still walking around and still saying, I'm running the streets. And so it's like he don't know what to do. So you talk about, hey man, you have two options. What about school? Right? I see you were on the honor roll student, but who are your circle of influences?
Right.
Because
you're kind of mentoring at this point, coaching. Do you have experience with that?
Yeah, man. I coach. I currently coach basketball. I'm at St. X right now.
Okay.
Go Tigers. Right.
Another shout out.
Yeah. And I've been coaching for about 15 years.
I was going to say, you've been coaching a while, haven't you?
Right. And I started in the Iroquois area, Hazelwood Elementary.
Another shout out.
Yeah.
Chief, this seems like this is a very complex problem, right? I mean, and the homicides, the retaliatory violence in the community, and it sounds like it's going to require a complex solution. We can't just arrest our way out of this, right? I mean, that's kind of the framework of GVI.
It is. I think we overthink a lot of things. I think we give complexity where it's actually, if you break it down, you're dealing with individuals who have no hope and no opportunity, right? So if you have no hope, no opportunity, no income, well, you're going to commit crime, and you're going to go with what's, most readily available. So I think that it's what Smiley and GVI is intended to do is not just, first off, it's just giving someone, have these folks ever had someone who's just a random person, which is what he represents, come in and say, we care about you. Yeah. We don't want you to die. But then also find out, how can I help you? So he doesn't just give a hug.
It's not scared straight, right?
No,
it's like, you're going to go to jail.
No,
it's like, hey.
It's 180 degrees from that. There's enough of that in their lives. That's policing has to get away from that methodology. Should never have been our role. But it's also him bringing forward resources to the extent of, do you need job training?
Right.
Does your mom or your siblings, do you need your help with your electricity, so that there's electricity in the house? Because many times he will relay to me stories where children are committing crimes, and I call them children because they are, whether they have a gun or not is irrelevant, to get money to support the siblings or to ensure there's electricity in the house. And I understand there's people who will say, well, yeah, this is just a welfare system. No, what we're doing is we're saying, as law enforcement, we have been putting people in jail for decades. And all it has done is cause further problems. Are we going to get to the root problem and fix it? Or are we just going to keep beating our heads on the wall? And so the other thing that I know that he's working on, which I think will be really important, is pulling into his circle of influencers, teachers, principals, coaches,
other community partners,
the religious communities. He's had some fantastic outreach there. But it's all around that holistic to help someone to raise them up, because we had one here recently, not that long ago. It was horribly tragic. The young lady, her school day was fantastic, and she had a great school environment, great sports environment. But at the end of the day, she had to go home to her home, which was in the heart of violence.
Yeah.
And she ended up subsequently becoming another homicide victim.
Yes.
So there has to be that wraparound circle of support to ensure that people aren't just safe during one section of the day.
Right. I think it'd be important to do community partners in reference to GVI on another podcast and get like a different angle from the GVI as opposed to just Smileys, you know?
Yes.
So, hey, that was pretty good, man. I think you are the right man for this job.
It's an honor. It's a huge task, but I'm up for it.
Hey, he's awesome, isn't he?
He is, and I think you know what he brings to the table. You can't, when people really feel something, they bring a passion that we can't train, we can't buy.
It's in the blood or
it's in the and it's you could and he's this for him is his calling.
Well, Smiley, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I hope you had a great time. I know the chief and I cannot wait to see the strong work that you're going to do in the upcoming months as GVI takes off even more. How'd you feel about the podcast? Did you have fun? You like it? Are you going to come back or are you never going to see us again?
No, I definitely got to come back.
You got more people to shout out too? Is
I got more people to shout out.
Well, listen, thanks for tuning in, folks. That's going to wrap up our episode of LMPD on the Record. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on our YouTube channel. You'll get notified when podcasts go live. And I don't know who we're going to bring on next, but hopefully we can make this a like regular thing now. We don't have any more interruptions, so we can get some information out to the community. Right?
Oh, and I want to close by saying thank you to the police department. Y'all have been knocking it out of the park, and it is showing. Crime is going down, shootings are going down, but more than anything, your engagement is being noticed and felt by the community, and I just have such pride in LMPD. Thank you.
And that's On the Record with LMPD.